All right, so now that you are an expert in the different match level settings, we can actually talk about different types of regions. And you, as I said before, what you're going to notice is there's a lot of similarity between the different types of regions that we can apply to our Applitools visual validations and to the match levels. There's a lot of similarities between those two. So the very first region that I want to talk to you about is known as an ignore region. And by the way, just in general, with all regions in Applitools, they can either be applied at the UI level or they can be applied through code. And I'm going to take you through the UI implementation and the code implementation for each of these different regions. So now an ignore region is exactly as it says right there. Actually, if you hover over that, you can see that you can add a region inside which differences should be ignored. So if for whatever reason you want a region where you don't care what's going on inside of that region, you can add it so that Applitools will ignore that. So let's talk in this case for this example. I'm going to put these two images on top of each other and notice the match level settings. Match level settings are strict, and now if I tab through these two images, what are the differences that are going to be highlighted? Think about it for a second. Now, the differences that you should notice that are highlighted are the text color here and the euro symbol being placed instead of the dollar sign. So those are the differences. So if we do turn on the differences, you can see that those are spotted out. However, if for whatever reason you didn't care about the changes in the euro, you can add an ignore region. So you can put in ignore regions like this. And so now this will always be ignored. As you can see now, we only have a single thing being highlighted here. I can put these images side by side and you can see that now this is being ignored and only a single thing is being highlighted. So if any change happens in this ignore region, then Applitools will not mark it as a failure. Instead, it will allow you to proceed. There are several different use cases that you might find for yourself for ignore regions. One main way that I've been using the ignore regions in my past with all the visual validations I've done is, for example, if you have an application that changes over time, maybe you updated some buttons to look a different way, you can add ignore regions to those buttons so that from year to year, if there are changes, you ignore how the buttons look because that look may be an expected change. And so now this page will always have those new buttons, but we don't really care that the buttons change because we know that's expected. So that's one use of an ignore region. Let's go and take a look at the code so that you can see how we implement ignore regions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the code. I'll show you exactly what I did. So I've created another class here called ignore regions that still inherits from base class because our base class contains a majority of very reusable components. Then I've created a setup method inside of the class. So this setup method is actually going to execute before every single test method, but it's going to execute after the setup method in our base class, because this is only relevant to this class right here. And we'll step through the code so that you can see exactly what's happening. So anyways, in this method that's called execute before every test, we're going to go to the pricing page, which is very standard, exactly as we've been working with the pricing page, the same exact method. However, what's new here is I added this method called update, subheading, and currency. So if I go ahead and peek this definition and scroll down a bit, what you can see I've done here is I'm locating this element. This element is called subheader locator. If we go to that definition, you can see that the subheader locator is this locator right here. Let me show you that in the application as well. So let's inspect this. using developer tools, and I can do a Control F to search, paste that in here, and as you can see, it's located this element right here. Okay, so that's that element that I'm looking at in here. So then, now that I have the subheading element, what I'm going to do is use JavaScript to go ahead and update the text content. Okay, and again, all of my examples are very common visual validation problems that may occur. So in this case, I'm just updating the text to be this text, and I'm updating it on this specific element that I just showed you. And then afterwards, we're doing the same exact thing we were doing before, where we're updating the inner text of that pricing element, but now instead of using the $sign, we're using a USD. And so again, another very common problem that may occur where we change from $sign to USD, and now the question is that a bug or is that normal? However, it's important to visually catch that so that we know what to do with that problem. So once this code executes, what's going to happen is we're going to start with this test method that I've named ignore regions using by. We're opening Applitools just like normal, and I'm passing in this new test name. I'm calling it ignore region using by. If you remember from our previous tutorials, this will create a brand new baseline because I'm passing in a brand new test name. Now, then I'm using a check method from Applitools, and a check method allows me to pass in a name, which is just the name of the automated check. It's the same thing as the tags that you've seen before. And then I use this call right here to ignore our price locator. Let me show you what the price locator looks like. If I peek that definition, you can see the price locator, simply we're finding using class name this ETPB sum. This is the exact price locator that we've been using to deal with the prices. So if I come in here and I update this class right there, you can see that the very first element is this one. That's what's being highlighted, and we actually have 3 of those elements total. And so this method, what it's actually going to do is do a visual validation check, but it's going to automatically add an ignore region for the price locator. Let's go ahead and step through the code so that you can better see exactly what is going on. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here because you've already seen the setup methods being done in the base class. Instead, I'm going to put a breakpoint here so that you can see everything that's going on as we're running through this test class. So we've got the browser up. Now I'm going to go ahead and place this on the right hand side so that we can see it side by side, and we're going to have the browser on the left hand side. So now we have the go to pricing page method. I'm going to go ahead and step over that, which will do exactly as it says, where it will open the fake pricing page, and now it will update the subheading and the currency using JavaScript. So you can see that now that's going to get executed before every single test method because I'm always trying to remove duplication in the code. Next, I'm going to use the Applitools open method to start a brand new test case in Applitools. It's going to use the parameters to decide if there is a new baseline, and if not, it's going to create a brand new one. So it's done. It's going to check in our resolution that I had specified. It's done checking, and now, oh, sorry, it wasn't done checking. It was just opening the test case and the resolution that I specified, and now is going to check visually the visual validation of the page, but it will ignore the price locator. So let's finish running this and then see how it looks in Applitools. So I'm just going to hit continue. It's doing the visual validation right now, using its smart algorithm to compare the page to see if it matches the expected conditions. Now you can see there's an exception that has been thrown where Applitools has detected one difference. So no problem. We'll proceed through this. And then we'll actually pull up Applitools to see what that difference was. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to refresh this. You can see that we have a new test case that says unresolved. And here is the new test name. Remember, I told you that I've changed it. And so this is ignore regions using by. And so now we can click in here and look at that test case. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And actually, is the second time I'm executing it. That's why it's unresolved. But the first time I executed it, I rejected that baseline. So anyways, what you can see here now is we have this item. And this item has ignore regions that are automatically applied here. So even if we had changed this before, these ignore regions would have ignored these elements being changed, and so nothing would have been spotted out except any other changes that we did not ignore. I can actually show you that with a better example. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to reject this baseline because I don't want this to be as a baseline. Instead, what I want is to set a brand new baseline. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand this. And now that you understand the code, I'm going to do one thing down here. I'm going to go ahead and ignore all of this so that we don't actually update our elements. So now we'll get a clean baseline using our page exactly how it's supposed to look. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do a run here. All right, excellent. So that has finished. Let's take a look at Applitools. Refresh this. We're going to have a new unresolved test. So let's open this up. Oh, of course, it's automatically doing the ignore regions, which is great. And then this, everything here looks as expected. So we're going to set this as a baseline. Give it a thumbs up. Say, great. Baseline has now been set. And so with that, you can see status is passed. Everything is good. And let's go ahead and rerun this test case with JavaScript updates and see how that will actually look. All right, excellent. So that's finished. Let's look at the Applitools user interface, pull that up, and you can see that there is now an unresolved test here. We can expand it, and you can see that now everything that has changed, right? You can see the USD that we've changed. However, that's not being marked. That's actually being ignored because we've set the ignore region here. But what has happened is we've actually shifted our text more to the right. Let me zoom in here. You can see that we've shifted the text to the right because our USD takes up much more space than the dollar symbol. So of course that was a failure. And then the next other failure is up here where we updated the text. We changed it from companies, we put an apostrophe S, and we've removed the period. And so you can see that all of that has shifted as well and has failed. So those are the two failures, but whatever we ignored in an automated manner will stay ignored. And so the benefit of this is that now if you want to keep these ignore regions for all your future test executions, that is not a problem. That's the beauty of regions.